The Wholeness Network. Awaken to the reality of wholeness. Today, I am in the hot seat as Robin Johnson and Dr. Jeff O'Driscoll interview me about the four bodies, about my story, and why I love wholeness so much.
We're so excited today to start this conversation with Mechelle and learn from what she has to share here on the network. So tell us how you see wholeness.
Well, I love the word wholeness because for myself, everybody comes to this work by way of hurt, damage, pain, suffering. And when you're in those states, the idea that has to go away is the thought process. That's just genuinely what you think needs to happen. And so when I begin to understand the idea of wholeness and the idea of actually, because there were pieces of those difficult times that brought into my life experiences that I really needed and that really pushed me and brought me to a place of something bigger than I thought I could be. And so I recognized that I didn't really want to have those all go away. And so the concept of wholeness, meaning that everything comes together, everything contributes to your experience. And what I love about it is it gave me permission to stop judging myself or my experiences, but also others. So, when I can walk into a gas station and talk with someone that is very different from me as far as their life experience here, I still have a connection. I can still make a connection because that's very much their wholeness. I can see very much a part of what's making them create this life. And I can see how I can impact that by being friendly and kind and trying to make that connection, that I could participate in their wholeness. And so I love the idea of wholeness and letting go of the idea that I've got to cut and erase pieces of who I am or what I want to do or be or whatever, that it all comes together and creates the whole. So I love that.
So do you feel like you're moving from the idea of becoming whole to living in the notion of being whole and living a wholeness rather than something in the future?
Yeah, I realize that it's being whole and living whole is something that is a moment by moment experience, but it doesn't ever show up to me. I show up to it by claiming it and by allowing it to teach me. Because if I think of wholeness, then if I've been having an experience that's uncomfortable, then it helps me to step away from that and learn from it. And then it, because it's not personal, because I've stepped away from it, then it can teach me in a better way. And so, but my favorite part, and I'm repeating, is just the ability I'm able to do with other people. I'm able to step away from their, whatever's happening and see the same thing in the other people. And then I can connect so much better to these people and find meaning in connection. I love finding connection with people that I met. And
so tell us one of your aha moments that moved you into this kind of perception of wholeness.
So, interesting enough, probably about 2008, I had kind of some profound understandings about losing weight. So as a mom, having a baby and having baby weight and then losing just some normal pounds and then moving up and having another baby, your weight and stuff would fluctuate. And as women, we have an idea of what we want to be like. And somewhere, some special gift that I was given was to recognize that I knew that I didn't that I wish I were thin. I'd look at those people and, oh, they're so lucky they can be thin. Like, I wish I could be like them, but it's just not in my cards. You know, it's just not who I need to accept that that's just not who I am. And so I really recognized that I needed to keep that perspective, because I knew if I ever had this thought, like, if when I lose 5 pounds or 20 pounds or 50 pounds, then I will feel better, because I knew it, once I lost that 50 pounds, that would feel great. But if I gained back any, then that would mean the opposite. Mm-hmm. So I knew I couldn't do anything until I was okay with who I was. For some reason, I just knew I had to be okay with who I was. And so I was working on that, and you know, and learning how to dress cute for my shape, and learning what looked good on me, and I was thrilled about that until one day, through watching a friend go through her weight loss little journey, all of a sudden I started to recognize, wait, when I say that would never be me, I could never be thin, why did I think that? And I started to see how my thinking affected so much of my life, that I had influence on every part of my life by my beliefs and thoughts about it, even to the point where I would recognize that even in judging a food, or whether I exercised too much or not enough or whatever, that judgment was playing and holding some space for my experience, almost equally, if not more, to what was actually going on. And so I learned to think about those things, and I also recognized that people were having totally different experiences under the same exact criteria. So what was that thing that was influencing it? You know, because we knew the mathematics. You know how much your body needs. You know, I knew for my height and my weight how much it would take for me to lose this and this. I knew the math, but so did everybody else. Yeah, so did everybody else. You know, and then you would see the things come in. I call them the should shows. So in the morning, you know, moms, you watch the should shows. So it's like, here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. Whether it's about putting your, you know, how you should like organize your closet, how you should shop, how you should lose weight, you know, and then like 2 weeks later they would say the opposite of what they just said on this show, you know, and so all those shoulds started to say, okay, what's missing then? Because I really genuinely believed that the person that was on there, it was working for them.
Right.
So what was the unknown factor?
I think that's part of the realization, is when you realize it's working for them.
Right.
I need something that works for me.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And this wrong-headed thing we do, where we try to apply things universally to everybody in the same way.
Right. And what was interesting too is the more I started to look at my own thoughts, you know, for one person, this much on the scale looked fabulous. And then for the next person, it didn't. And that's another thing too, is I thought, you know, you look at paintings in the, you know, the Middle Ages or whatever, a large, plump woman was the most beautiful shape there was. Mm-hmm. So even the idea that being thin, that was not a reality. That's not real. That's an opinion. Mm-hmm. And
a culture.
And a culture. And so I had a choice to buy into that culture. Because I could be oblivious, you know, if I tell this funny story. It's like, if I walked around with, you know, something between my teeth all day and I didn't know about it, and then it went away before I got home, and I was just, hey, how are you? I would have no insecurities about something stuck in my teeth. Right. None. But if I knew it was there, you know, then I would like worry about keeping my mouth shut, you know, and I would be hesitant, you know, but it was my perception. The only thing that was different was my perception.
And it's not just that you would know it was there, but it would be the cultural construct of it's
wrong.
Not supposed to be there, right?
Right, that's a whole nother issue. The possibility of me walking around with something between my teeth and being totally okay with it exists in the universe. And I bet you I could like talk to someone else, because I did this with other people that I looked up to. It's like, maybe I should put something between my teeth. You know what I mean? It would be having that positive, those positive thoughts is it's contagious. So the what becomes nothing. The what is nothing. It's the why and the how. And we talked about that, like the why we eat what we eat, and the how, you know, what is it feeding? And that kind of went into the 4 bodies for me. So
you put some of these experiences and thoughts together. You wrote some of them down.
Yeah. Yes. So I was actually I was interviewed by Women's Health magazine, and what was interesting is we would be on the phone. I'd be pacing back and forth on the phone while we were talking to, I don't know where she was at. I think there were 6 hours worth of interviews.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just, I mean, it's a small 1-page thing, and when you read the article, it doesn't do much justice, because I was trying to make her understand some of these things, because back in, I mean, just in 2008, 2009, I think actually this was more like 2010, even, you know, it was like, well, I didn't work out for 5 hours a day, or I the only time I worked out, 22 minutes was the most I ever worked out, and then I would maybe do some weights, but I didn't like getting sweaty. Like, one of the things that would stop me in the past was this, you know, I would have to take out of my routine. My belief was 2 hours of time that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So when I questioned, do I have to do that? Well, let's just do what we do. So I'm just gonna get on, and then I'll just get off when I'm done.
When you start sweating.
Yeah, when I don't want to do it anymore. You know, or I was like, what? Because these thoughts, well, then when I'm sick, it's hard to get back on the wagon, because then you're sick, and then it's like hard. And then, so I was able to say, well, then if I'm sick, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
And I just gave myself these permission. But 6 hours of interviews trying to get them to understand that it was a mind change more than a recipe. And it was hard. She's like, well, just tell us, like, what snack would you go to? And I was like, well, it depended on what I wanted, you know, like, if I wanted a piece of chocolate, I ate a piece of chocolate. But you know what I did is, when I'm eating that piece of chocolate, it's feeding all of me. Like, it's good.
The
You know?
emotional.
Yeah, it's
the
feeding all of
physical.
those. It's feeding all of those. So those little pieces were really fundamental in my journey. But I didn't hit the, like, energy world or the emotional healing world until probably 2015 started to show up. So, but those were the first steps in understanding my thought process.
Well, I love in your book, Mentality Workout. I think it's so amazing how you talk about that the weight is not always just on the physical
Yeah.
level. Traditionally, that is how weight loss is addressed. You've got to eat this, you've got to exercise this, you've got to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to drink.
Yeah.
It's all of the physical, but help us understand how it can be on the emotional level, or
Well, and I'm still doing the homework on that. I just know that sitting there one day, and we're so easy to say, oh, I'm an emotional eater. Or so that was one of the big clues, was an emotional eater. Another big clue was a plateau. Because I realized that, you know, in my own experience, I had gained the weight in kind of sections of my life. And why do we want it to all come off on the same section? Like, we want it to all come off, but it was like, what if there was different, what if those plateaus are really a sign of there's something more to look at? You know, because I knew that when I was in different areas of my life, food was, when I was giving so much to my little kids, I mean, I would wake up in the morning and you'd be laying there and it was like, oh yeah, there's some leftover chocolate chip cookies from last night. Okay, let's go. Like, that was what could get me out of bed that day. And I mean, I was known for teas, like, it was like, if, you know, because I would be sitting there going, okay, when can I have those cookies? You know, like, oh, and I thought, you know what? 8 a.m., I'm gonna have a chocolate chip cookie. If I'm gonna eat this in order to have that, why don't I just eat that in the first place and let go of the judgment on it? because, and at that time, it was of an emotional need. It really was. It was something to get the monotony of the day to go away. It was something to feed myself and help myself feel like I was important, or I was feeding that part of me. So during that time, I totally can see how any weight that I gained there was a totally different feeling about it than when I was first married, and everything in the cupboard's what you like. Versus when you live at home, some of the meals mom cooks, you're like, nah. Well, when you're on your own, you like every meal. So
that's a good point. I never thought about when you're doing your own shopping, you buy what you like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so therefore,
good point.
The freshman 15, or when you get married, you're like, I'm not going to cook something I won't eat.
Yeah,
that's hard for women. That's hard. So then everybody doesn't like it, and you're like, and then you eat everybody else's plates to clean it up because you like it. And so so maybe that takes a different approach.
So is your book available now? How do people get it?
On Amazon. You can go to Amazon. You can search for mine. You can search for Mentality Workout. It should be there. And it was just kind of, the book happened. I think I wrote it in 1 week. It just flew out of me. It's just fun. It's fun. Like, it's meant to be very light. It's not so much a how-to book as it is just, let's challenge some of these thoughts that you have thought that you just think are true. Let's just, what if we can just crack that open just a little bit? And so we find different ways. And then I also have,
like you told me earlier,
yeah,
one of those thoughts that you challenged was, you thought, I've had 4 kids, so I can't be slim.
Yeah.
Right? And just one day you just realized, wait a minute,
where'd that come from?
And how do I change that thought? How do I change that belief?
Yeah. So it was like, what if I can? And even just, to me, I attribute my weight loss to really almost that thought alone, was just the possibility of just peeling that away, saying, oh, I can. There's no reason for it. And so
there's no universal rule.
There's no law. I had made that up. I had just believed that, but I was like, I could give you the reasons why I thought so, but just in that moment, it was like, well, why did I buy into that? So the day that I had that thought, I created almost this letter to myself. I will do this, and I wanted to. In order to just see if I was gonna succeed, I think I was gonna lose like 5 pounds in 3 months, because I had never really lost, like on purpose kind of a thing. That was another part of it. I would never let myself even go there because I was afraid of gaining it back. So I had to, I was so afraid of that, gaining it back, that I wouldn't even try. So that was a whole nother thing I kind of had to work on too. But I wrote this declaration to myself, and I just remember turning to my husband and saying, it's just done. It was just done. And within a few weeks, I was at the store trying on a size I didn't even wear in high school. And I thought, dang. Why didn't I think of this sooner? But it was the profound lessons I learned about my thinking, about myself, about society, and how we create these kind of things that we all just follow this rule book as if it exists, and it doesn't. Because it does if I buy into it. But I knew that if I could walk around any size, and if I felt fabulous about myself, it didn't matter. That's how I would feel. Like, that would be my experience. It didn't matter what someone else judged of me. So that's what I was trying to work on. But it was really interesting to come from that angle.
Yeah.
Because the physical body, the physical body, we starve it, we sweat it, we pull we pull on it, we jerk it around, we injure it, and I don't know if it's always a physical issue. In fact, I think most of the time it's not a physical, because even if we're eating more food than we should, it's not because our physical body needs it. Our physical body actually tries to keep us in even tone, and that's what's was when You know, even if you're 100 pounds overweight, your body thinks that is fantastic. So, when you go to starve it, it's keeping you, it wants that 100 pounds. It's like, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. And so it'll fight with you a little bit. So I talk about, small little changes so that we don't shock the body because we can shock the body and lose a bunch of weight fast, but then we have then when it comes back on, it kind of does that little, not only mess with your psyche because you feel so good when it comes off fast, and then it's hard for it to come back on, but also it's like then the next time it's like, oh no, you're not doing this again, and it's going to try a little bit harder to hold on to it. Your body thinks you're the best thing in the world. Your physical body is thrilled, and it gives you the message. It will give you the message. So if your knees are hurting, the message is maybe that weight needs to come off because your knees are hurting.
So in that context, how do you give yourself emotional care? How do you take care of yourself emotionally?
That's another thing that I want to scream on every mountaintop is I feel it down in my little baby toe that we need a process, that's something that we're lacking. This morning, we were going through, we were sitting in bed this morning, and my husband was just looking through Reddit, and there was this cute little post about this woman had posted her husband had a spinal cord injury and had spent a year coming back, and it was this video of 12 minutes, 15 minutes of the strength just to move the toe and this thing, and I'm watching this just it was miraculous, but my heart ached because he was in an accident, and they didn't say what happened, but immediately he had a team on him. I mean, he never was with just one person. He had a team moving this leg, moving that leg, helping him this. There was this machine that helped him walk. There was, the amount of support to help his physical body get from injury to well was huge. And I thought, what about the person that's lost a loved one? And that emotional hit that is just as devastating as whatever happened to his spinal cord. And we have nothing. We don't even think about a team like, oh my gosh, that person's lost somebody. We don't have a process to say, this is going to take a year. We've got to do this, this, and this, and this. And yet, don't you think the loss of, because when I looked at him,
I would use an even more challenging example, because when somebody loses a loved one, a lot of times people do assemble.
Right,
to give
and then
them
they
emotional support
for a minute.
But we have these emotional injuries all the time that other people don't know about.
True.
And so nobody shows up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and when I could see him in the video, I could see that I'm sure he had bad days where he was like, why me? Well, and I'm sure it was that way. But the task at hand was to get his physical body from A to B. Well, when you take an emotional hit?
Well, even in his situation, did he have the emotional care as well?
Right,
as
true.
the physical team care.
Yeah, but I was just wowed at the team and the expense and the necessity. You wouldn't take back one person and say, well, we could have done without him. It was all hands on deck to get this guy to walk again. And he was able to walk again, but the muscles, when he just had one little toe he could move, and then the day that he could flex one, and they got one leg working and then the other leg. And I thought, why do we not have anything for those emotional hits or spiritual hits? We're afraid of spiritual hits. Don't have a spiritual hit. That's terrifying, or even even the mental hit, where people will have a mental hit and we scatter. We're afraid of those things. And I really hope that that's hopefully someday some of these ideas about how important it is to be helped physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, can be something that we learn every single day, that becomes part of it. So what I do is, awareness is the biggest key to self-care every single day. And the body, that's the great thing, is the body is the key for that, because I can feel today school just started yesterday. I can feel in my body some unease. You know, I feel in my body some unease, so I'm aware of that as I move around. Before, I wouldn't have had awareness. What I would have done is I probably would have been short with my kids, eaten something to make it go away. It would have come out in different ways, but because I have the awareness of okay, so I have some discomfort in me that I think is emotional. I'm pretty sure it is. Because, why? Because I feel just this little tug and burning just right here in my gut. Or sometimes I'll just feel like a tightness in my neck that just makes me, I recognize my, you know, and that's where like learning the chakras helped me a lot, because they sure make sense of what's going on in my body. You know, I mean, if I'm feeling it here, I totally can recognize that I'm feeling an impact on my personage, you know, that my feeling about myself.
Your ability to express.
Yes, my ability to express, my ability to be myself, maybe even can go here, or even the difference in my, it's my power, you know, just a little bit of helplessness is maybe my emotion in starting school, junior high and high school with my two youngest. That's a vulnerable time, and I feel that in my body as I send them off to school, and I don't have little ones that I can pamper and tell how to dress and all that stuff. So they've got to go out into this world all on their own, and it's vulnerable for me to just let go.
Oh, we're in such a different place. And my kids are all done with school, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to pamper that and take care of that.
Yeah, I know. I'm thrilled to get there. Just still tugging, a couple more to go, and then we're
I know. Well, I love the awareness that you've brought to the four bodies, and I feel like what you've taught me about the four bodies has revolutionized how I think about myself and my life. And I know you have big ideas about this. I know you have things that you want to share with the world. So how can the world, you said it starts with awareness, but what can they do to really tap into that connection with each of the aspects of who we are?
Well, the chakras are good. Like, the chakras go in right in balance with the four bodies. They all work together, and
the
have
four
an
bodies
experience. Being this mental body. So the mental body is, to me, they become like my little friends and personalities. So if I'm talking to myself, it's just me talking to one of my bodies. No, it's not. But they become so distinct inside me. And there are other bodies. Some people have 7 bodies. They'll talk about a financial body. But to me, you're going to have an emotional component to finances. You're going to have a mental component to finances. So to me, I can break them down into 4. And they all will react to things in different ways. And because our little personalities are different, I'm going to have maybe an emotional experience with finances where someone else might have a physical one, where they just, whatever that looks like. So, I mean,
so the 4 bodies you're talking about are emotional,
mental, physical, and spiritual. Okay. And they all, as far as like the spiritual body, to me is just, it's kind of like an overseer. The spiritual body is that place that's maybe beyond ego. We all can access it beyond ego. It's that piece of us. When we connect into that spiritual body, you take a deep breath, and those emotions calm down, and the physical sensations relax, and the mental busyness calms. So I see the spiritual body as kind of this higher version of, and it kind of oversees, and it's just, if you can add that spiritual body, the spiritual body needs food like anybody else. The spiritual body loves ritual, and it loves ceremony. The reason why I think that is because ritual and ceremony have been around since humankind have been around. I remember watching some strange documentary, and it was, this was the story, but the idea got bigger off of it. But they had found this cave where they were able to find Neanderthal remains and Homo sapien remains. That's the word, right? Homo sapien?
That sounds like a good word to me.
Okay, I was like, and I remember the guy saying, and the difference was ritual and ceremony. That was the
Wow.
difference in the relics and stuff that was left behind. So if that was an instinct at the very beginning, then I think that's important. And spiritual
So
is
what
beyond
kind of-
physical.
So setting aside perhaps specific religions,
Right.
what are some rituals that people do or could do
Yeah.
to
Feed their spirit.
aid their spiritual health?
So music calms the savage beast, right? How does it do that? It's not a, so because to me it sings to that spiritual body, and then when that spiritual body, when we allow that to come to the surface, so music will bring and let that spiritual body arise. And when that spiritual body arises, then, like I say, the physical body calms, the mental body, it just is, it's that. There's meditation can do that. Meditation's something, prayer and meditation. Prayer in the act of asking for what you want, that the spiritual body is capable. It's capable. So it's okay with asking for what it wants. It doesn't mean it can do everything, but it has no judgment on saying, I need this today. So in prayer, and then meditation in receiving information on that spiritual level where it just is personal. And spiritual is non-physical. So sometimes I won't have a physical connection with someone. Sometimes I won't have an emotional connection with someone, and mentally maybe we're thinking differently, but I can connect with someone spiritually all the time.
Anytime.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's the spiritual body. You can when you tune into that, it just brings hope and healing to everything. So that's like the spiritual body is like the secret weapon we all have, is to tune into that body. But we wouldn't have an experience without the other bodies. So the emotional body, well, let me talk about like the mental body. So to me, the mental body is very in the brain, and it's our thinking process. But what's interesting is people can have a mental body that's very active. I think we have usually one body that kind of is our home.
Dominant?
Yeah, our dominant body. So somebody that has a mental body that's their dominant, we often think that would be like an intellectual person. But I know artists that are, they are artistic to the nth degree, and that's a mental body thing, because our brain has a right side and a left side, and we have, so you can be logical, and you can be more literate, like being literal and those kind of things, but you've got that other side of the brain that is expansive. If you've ever seen Jill Bolt Taylor's stroke of insight, where she's a brain surgeon that has a stroke and experience the way she describes the two hemispheres of the brain. That's it. So we have those experiences through the mental body, and so usually we'll be either more right or more left, but we're still the thoughts. I can just think of that artist that's just so intense with their art. It's just they're not having emotions with it. They're not having. It's like, this is serious thoughts. This is their being, the thoughts of everything they think of is just how they got to do the art, and what the process is. It's about the process and what it means and all those things. So that would be a mental body. The physical body.
As an artist, do you feel like you have emotions that are poured into your work as well?
Most of the time. I don't do much realist painting.
Yeah.
I mostly paint abstracts, and literally I can be filled with frustration and a lot of worldly kind of things, and I can sit in front of a blank canvas and start to paint, and I can feel it leave me.
Wow.
I can feel it go onto the canvas, and when I look at the canvas and I'm calm and I look at it and I go, oh, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
People will ask me, how do you know when it's done? That's how I know. I look at it, it's done, and everything is calm.
Yes.
And I can get up and walk away.
Yes. So do you see the difference between that experience where it emotionally is coming out on the canvas versus somebody that's doing it from their mental body, that's like the process, you know what I mean? It's like, I got to get the process down, and it's a totally different experience.
Yes, it's very different, and that's the frustration I feel when I try to do realist kind of painting.
Yes.
I can't get the details exactly like I want them, and I find it to becoming increasingly frustrating rather than therapeutic.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I paint abstract.
Yes.
But when I sculpt, when I work with clay, again, you can just feel, just feel it go through me and into the clay.
Wow.
And I can make it exactly the way I want it, and if something's not the way I want, I can whack it off and start again on that part.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it involves all the bodies.
Yeah.
The physical, the mental, the emotional, definitely the spiritual.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying, because I would have never have equated art into the mental body.
It depends.
But the right side of the brain, absolutely.
So it's where, and they all work together. But like, to me, so the emotional body, usually the emotional body is opposite than the mental body. You know, usually you'll stick
on a spectrum.
Yeah, like maybe on a spectrum. And this is kind of like just all in my own head, but so you'll have so if you're coming in from the emotional side, you've got to use your mental, and you do use your mental to do some, but you've got the spiritual and you've got the physical, because when you're painting, you're physically moving, but it's not presenting out of that body. Do you know what I mean? You're using the physical experience. And it's not coming out of your spiritual body. It's not more like feeding your spiritual body, actually, but it's going to come out of your mental body, or it's going to come out of your emotional body. Yeah. And so they kind of work together. And they kind of, so people, I've seen most people, you'll lean emotional, or you'll lean mental. Mm-hmm. But there are people that have a physical body that's their dominant, and these are the people that love the gym. You know what I mean? That burn is like, it just feeds their soul. And that's what I thought I had to be. You know, I was like trying to become a physical body, like lord of my physical body. And it's like, that's just not who I was, you know. But there are people who, the physical body, that stuff, like, and they're the ones that are usually teaching weight loss, because they're like, and so all you do is you just have your salad and some salmon in it, and it's just delicious, and you're like,
and you work out 8 hours a day, and get paid to work out 8 hours a day.
And so those are the kind of people that we look to for advice on working with physical body, where, wait, my problem isn't that, my problem is I like a chocolate chip ice cream, like that's my problem, like, and that salad and stuff, like, if I'm gonna sit there and have a salad with some salmon in it, and inside the thought is that I recognize the thoughts are, I have to do this because if you start to recognize your thoughts, because I have this weight on me, and I should have done this, and I don't deserve it. It's so self-deprecating.
It is. Yeah.
That that you'll lose. But to that physical body person that loves that, I mean, they love it, and I'm like, good. Good
Go
job.
for it.
I wish I were more like you. There's still hope. Someday, maybe we can move around.
But also the dancers, also the athletes, also the...
Yeah, it's just there, it feeds them.
Yeah.
Things come out of that's their go-to. Their go-to is the physical. But to the rest of us, it might not be dominant, but that physical body is the teacher, because if we listen to... So what the physical body will give us is the sensations of what the emotional body is experiencing. So we always call it feeling. Like, I don't feel well. You know, and then, or it's like, I'm feeling sad. Well, those two are different experiences. So we have to learn to separate out the sensations in the body and the emotions we're having. And so when we can get used to our sensations that are going on, it teaches us a lot about the emotional body or the spiritual body. You know, you're sitting there, you feel when your spiritual body rises, you get chills down your spine. That's a physical reaction to that spiritual body arising, you know. So that's a message to you. So when you listen to that physically, I mean, that feels so good. Just to even think, if you can bring that up right now, right? And so that physical body, or
It's kind of like your spiritual body smacking your physical body upside the head and saying, "Hey, I'm here.
yeah,
Pay attention
Yeah.
to me," right?
yeah, it's there, those physical sensations, or and here's an example with the sensations too. A lot of times, you'll talk to people that were abducted or had something traumatic happen, and they will say, "Oh, I had I saw that guy and I knew he was up to no good." Well, why? Why did you? Yeah, how? Because you didn't. Either you're psychic, which is a possibility. I'm open to all possibilities, but what if that? So what if that physical body is giving you a message? And so listen to that physical body. Listen, that's a gift. Those sensations can be a gift. But we, in our society today, because we have a judgment on what a physical body should look like, then we're either always trying to make it different or we're trying to numb it. And so we suppress those sensations and don't equate them with the emotional body, mostly because we don't, and that's why I say we don't support the emotional body either. We cannot support the emotional body without delving into the sensations of the body, because they are a great communicator for what's going on in all the bodies. This physical body is a tool.
As a physician, I can resonate with what you're saying, because some studies suggest that as much as 40% of the people who come to the emergency department with abdominal pain, which, by the way, is the number one reason people come to the ERs, is abdominal pain.
Wow.
And some studies suggest as much as 40% of those people have some psychiatric or mental cause for their chronic undiagnosed abdominal pain. It's a physical sensation.
Well, and what's interesting is, if you go to the chakras, your stomach is either your power or your creativity or relationships. So it'd be interesting if in an emergency room, that's one of the questions. Have you had a disturbance in your relationships lately?
And in fact, that is a question in most emergency departments. That is a mandatory triage question, is about your domestic situation and do you feel safe with your partner, or has anybody injured you physically or emotionally. Screening questions for domestic violence are in most places mandatory part of the intake process.
So then if that's the case, then we need to go over to the patient and have them recognize. So it's not like, if you've had a disagreement at home, we don't have to get that person in trouble, but to recognize, I took a hit emotionally. That could be a clue. I took a hit emotionally, and to allow that to be part of your existence. It doesn't, because, and if we can separate from it, because what's going to hit me emotionally might not hit the next person emotionally. So it's not personal to the person that did it. It's not about blaming the person that did it. So if we can take a hold of our own emotional body, then, and say, I took a hit there, I'm telling you, I think it would revolutionize our physical experience. And at least I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if my big ideas.
And don't you think that some of the alternative medicine or non-traditional medicine or Eastern medicine traditions deal a lot more with these other bodies? They're about feelings and about energy and about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and how that contributes to your physical well-being.
Yeah, I think that's why they're becoming so popular, because people, when I first became an energy healer, I wrote a little mission statement of my own, because I recognized by the time in the United States, by the time someone comes to energy healing or emotional healing, they are at their lost straw. They are desperate. I was, at least. You're desperate. They've tried everything else. And so I have a responsibility to help them recognize that, and I want them to recognize that that's okay. That I'm not here to go against what they have done. We're not trying to, that we're here now. Let's just see if this can bring awareness to anything else.
What possibilities?
Right. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's a big deal, because there's a lot of people turning to the alternative because they haven't gotten the help they need. And it's not because the medical world does exactly what they're supposed to do. They fix the physical body. They fix the physical body. But if I emotionally don't connect with a physical part of myself for whatever reason, or if I'm running thoughts in my head constantly that make me I can see how my physical body would not feel good, right?
And it's just like what Dr. Jeff just said. If all those people coming in for the abdominal pain could stop before that and recognize the physical pain, it could stop them from progressing to that state.
I really do think
the abdominal help.
I think so. I think if we could build that muscle of sensations within the individuals.
So do you do any mental, spiritual, emotional exercises on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's a good question.
We know how you feel about physical exercise. Yeah. Tell us what you do for your other routine.
So one thing that's funny, my mom would always say, I do my crossword puzzles to keep my brain healthy, So I don't do crossword puzzles, but I play games. I will play a game, different critical thinking games or mental games on my phone. It feeds my body, my mental body.
I just had a conversation with my wife a few days ago about something like that. I was playing a game on a device, and it calms some of. Sometimes I get this rushing, repetitive stuff going around in my head, and I sit down and I play a game on a device. It calms all that down, and amazingly enough, sometimes I get some really interesting insights, even what some people would call downloads, while I'm kind of, it's like I put my mind in a state of rest, if you will, with this game for a while, and allow the spiritual to come through.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
I play my games for that. I feel my emotional body, or my brain just, it likes to figure things out. It likes a challenge. So there's times when I want to challenge it, and there's times when I want to relax it, and I love to, I love to challenge thought. So I don't know if sometimes I make myself a crazy person, because every thought that comes in, I'm going to think of an opposite thought and see if that holds any weight, and picture somebody that walks around with that opposite as their truth, because I think that happens more often than not, because
that's an interesting exercise.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. So I can make myself go. Sometimes it's hard because I will work that muscle so much that then when I'm in conversation with someone, I'm constantly somewhere else looking at the opposite of everything, and sometimes it's a little mind blowing, but I enjoy that, and I enjoy it, and so for me, meditation to me is probably a mental exercise, because there's the meditation where you try and have no thought, and anytime the thought comes, you move it aside. Well, I just come to center, and maybe this is where I move to my spiritual body, and then I see things so on a bigger scale, and I have understandings, and I can think about huge things way beyond my education. And I can see and experience, but it's a thinking thing. It's in that mental body.
But in that meditation, you can focus on a thought and let the possibilities open up.
Yes.
That's what you're doing.
Exactly.
So there are different ways to meditate.
Right. Yeah.
But that's certainly one, to hold a thought and allow it to expand.
Yeah. And the mental body is neat too, because then I have a thought and I can recognize, oh my gosh, that emotional body has a reaction to that thought. Or and then I can tell because the physical body is letting me know, right? The physical body saying, red alert, or this is the best, So it's fun to play around in those four bodies. They become fascinating. They're just fascinating how they they work. I've just enjoyed expanding that thought.
One of the most amazing things that I have watched you experience as you've explored learning about the four bodies is at one point you were working with a quadriplegic person and recognized that without the sensation of the physical body, she now had to reorchestrate how she got signals in her life. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was sitting there working with her. She couldn't move from the neck down. And from what I knew that that sensation of chills for that spiritual body to signal to her was now not at her disposal. And so I asked her about that. I said, is it difficult to feel the spirit, to feel that spiritual body connect, to a higher power? And it was kind of interesting. It was like the first time, like, did a tear drop down to recognize, oh, that's what's missing. Because that spiritual sensation had changed. And so it was going to take some time for her. So she said, I do have to feel it differently. And she couldn't quite describe it to me yet, but it was fascinating to recognize how much, and losing those physical sensations, how that did change. Because think about when you're sitting there looking at a loved one and your heart just swells with love for that person. They don't have that. So she could say, she's like, she can't feel it.
They have it. But
they have it, right? They can't. They don't. The sensation is so much of the experience, and so without that sensation, she had to come up with another way. And that was almost. It was something that it wasn't part of her regimen for sure, but it needed to be. And so she started to recognize different parts in her brain could light up, and kind of that she could now maybe assign that, or we kind of talked about that. But that was a profound moment. I kind of thought, oh, this physical body is so important to understanding those other bodies. It really does. And the emptiness, because imagine watching a scary movie without that pit in your stomach. Like, it would be a totally different experience.
And the physical body is almost a manifestation of what's happening everywhere else. Exactly.
So let's stop with what the body should look like and start to realize the miraculous behavior the gift that it is to give us these physical moments of pain and pleasure and joy. That's something that when it's gone, I think it takes a minute. The body will readjust and it comes up with new ways, but boy, it's so nice to have that pit, like edge of your seat, scared that somebody's going to jump out and say boo. I mean, if you think about it, that's a physical sensation your body's having, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Well, share with us, we've touched a little on wholeness, but maybe as we kind of wrap up, tell us why you're so passionate about wholeness.
Well, mind, body, spirit, soul, the four bodies, all of those things. I know that on my best days, when I have those things in an alignment, or when I feel whole, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, that's a good day. Like, very little can go wrong when you're in that state of feeling like you are whole. But like I say, little mama in Africa, for her to carry her jug of water maybe from a mile away, and it going well, feeds her in a way that I don't understand. And so maybe what happens in my day is less important than what I make it, because we have that ability to me, I love the word creator. We create our life, and I know. So for me, I feel like if I do this, and this, and this, I feel good about myself. But maybe let's challenge that a little bit. Again, that's what I do. So actually now I come into wholeness from the other perspective, and I say, preface when you're in it, when you are in it, when the when the mental body is spinning and thoughts are just popping at you and it's bringing up emotions and your physical station is going crazy, just survive. Just survive in those moments. But otherwise, you know, when I can think about wholeness, then I can let go of the thoughts I think I should be having and really just look at what's really going on. What's really going on, instead of being, I can tell when somebody gets outside themselves, I'll say, and they're moving around saying and doing what they think they should be doing, and then they're missing out on what's really going on, and there's always something to learn or something to grow from. So wholeness in bringing all those together, giving each of them an important weight to my experience, and then opening up to all the possibilities of what I don't comprehend and don't know, then I can feel whole. And I want to spread wholeness because the planet needs permission to be enough. And it starts, and I can't give somebody that. They have to be able to hold it inside themselves. And so I want them to be able
You
to.
can't give that to them, perhaps, but you can help them hold space for it.
Exactly.
So when you and Robin create the Wholeness Network, as a gift to the world, it's to hold space to let people come into their wholeness and to feel that they're enough.
They are enough.
Yes.
And I love that you give people permission to have a day when everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That emotions are okay.
Yeah.
That overeating is okay.
Yep.
That doing all the things that are human
Yes.
are okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're not whole or that you're not on the path.
Right.
You can keep moving along and learning as you go.
Yeah. You have it. Some of those days just give you a starting point. You know, like then it's like, hey, the next day if it's half as bad, wow, that feels a lot better. It holds its space. You know, you have those days that show up.
The eternal optimist, right there.
Right. I know. I totally am.
My day's only half as bad as yesterday. It's so great.
It's so great. No, it doesn't feel that great. It depends. Like I want to, stress that I have moments where I don't feel whole. You know, you don't feel whole. You feel quite the opposite. Actually, what's going on in those moments, I'm kind of just running a million miles an hour. I can't even tell you what I'm feeling. I can't even tell you what's going on. It's a whole chaos. And so I recognize that. I don't take lessons from that because I'm not myself in those moments. But they show up plenty, they show up plenty. And when I consider it, I don't know if taking those out, I don't think they would make my life as much better as I think.
Right.
Because I have no contrast. So.
Well, and like you're talking about, to get through a day like that or a moment like that, it's down to straight survival.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
It is.
But after those moments pass,
Yep.
as you approach your life with wholeness or see everything in the scope of wholeness, you can much more quickly get to a point of, what can I learn from that?
Yeah.
How did that make me feel?
Yes.
How can I make sure those feelings don't integrate into thoughts that I now believe about
Right.
myself? How can I use this experience for my good? And those difficult days become springboard for growth and awareness that then feed you right back into your wholeness.
Yep.
And
Right.
now you
right.
understand this about yourself, and now you see that belief you've been holding on to all these years, and so you find your balance again more quickly and easily.
Yeah, for sure. And I can even just have compassion too, like that.
Yes.
It's so nice to be able to have compassion for myself because I can give it to other people really easily. Like I can give it to other people really easily, and so I've got to do that for myself. I've got to do that for myself.
You got to see it in the mirror.
I got to see it in the mirror. Exactly. And that's the library. I mean, that's the wholeness library, is those techniques. When you're in that space, first aware that you're in that space, and then you have a bunch of tools to help you just how whatever's going to speak to you that day to just get you okay. And then you're just going to be right here. And then as you get some strength, then you can begin to learn from it, and then you can begin to grow from it. And that's, I hope that people will use the library that way, because you need tools. I don't know, at this point in evolution, we don't do it alone. And we don't always have everybody, people are having their own experience, so they can't always help you. And so here's some tools, whether it's, so, you got the essential oil, or I'm sticking a crystal down my shirt to be with my heart, because I need that support, because it's just a tool for me to say, this is happening, I need support. If nothing else, I don't even care if the qualities work, but to me, it's me saying, I'm needing some help.
And just by to do something about it.
I'm going to do something about it, and the awareness of it just helps me lift out of it just a little.
Yeah, it's like a little tool in mindfulness.
Yes.
It's like to move us in a direction where we can focus and be aware more.
Yeah. And what better than to have to recognize that this has certain properties, and I want those properties, and so just in that exchange of buying into that's what I want, to me is healing just even by itself. So the healing qualities are even secondary to that inside of me saying, this is what I need. I'm recognizing what I feel, and I have something to help me.
And so in the Wholeness Network Library, you've designed a lot of those tools and those pieces that people can access. Mm-hmm. So if people want to learn more about the four bodies, want to understand how to connect with them and work with them, the Wholeness Network Library is full of tools.
Yeah.
And are there other ways that people can connect with you and learn from you? I know we talked about your
on Amazon. I do have a website, MechelleWingle.com, and I do see clients on an individual basis, but it is rare because I am busy. Because I'm globally thinking. I want to help the masses, and one at a time. I want to do that because it all begins at one at a time. But my focus at this point is moving multiple people. And so I love speaking in groups and those kind of things, because that I feel like I can impact that better. I'm working on kind of an online class for my weight loss. I've taken people through this 8 weeks, we call it. I have it's like an 8-week program because everybody just wanted, well, what do I do? Just give me something to do. And I was like, so I do have a list of to-dos, but the to-dos are secondary to the self-discovery, and so that they're all centered around learning something about yourself, the discovery of what's going on. And so those, every week we take on a new little step to kind of understand ourselves with weight, with our weight. It's just something that's in our society now. We don't like our weight. I don't know why. But that right now we do. So let's explore it. Let's explore that dislike and figure out what's going on. So that will be something that we'll be able to buy through the Wholeness Network. So, but the Wholeness Network is just like my pride and joy and my baby right now. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. See me on there.
Thank you for all your hard work on the network. It wouldn't exist without you.
It's great. It's a joy. It's a joy.
Before you get up, you can cut this, but I want to ask this question, so if you want to keep it in, you can keep it in.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay.
So, is sex a spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical experience?
So you're going to have a different. That is a great question, because you're going to have different times. You're going to have different experiences. So like that's a perfect exploration. So in a sexual experience that's coming from the mental body, you're going to feel a connection of that's going to feel very different than an emotional experience. So an emotional experience, I mean, you're going to just feel this deep love and appreciation and understanding and you're gonna feel emotional about it. So not that you don't feel emotional other ways, but anyway, physical experience, we all understand. Just if we're gonna only have a physical experience, that's all we're gonna have. And then a mental, and then a spiritual experience is that's going to be where I think it would be like almost a transcendent moment where you
don't you think that's where true intimacy
yeah.
is in the spiritual oneness?
Yes. So in a committed relationship, so I talk about this in my Four Bodies class, actually. It takes a committed relationship to have a spiritual experience, to have a spiritual relationship with somebody. That takes a long-term committed relationship to build that. And so if you want to have an experience that's that way, it's not going to happen in a one-night quickie. And
there's no such thing as a spiritual quickie?
Spiritual quickie, not so much.
A spiritual one-nighter?
No.
Okay.
It just will feed some of the other bodies.
Okay.
But I can't remember exactly how I worded it I do these things where I come up with my little downloads, I put them out there, and then they're just out there. And I haven't spent much time on, but that's in the video, I talk about this.
A sex video?
Well, no, that's how I could get promotion that way, but no, it's in the Four Bodies where I talk about relationships,
I think you would get a lot of hits if you had a YouTube video that said 4-body sex video.
Let's try it. We can charge for it. We'll charge for it.
You might get sponsors and everything.
That's right. Yeah, seriously.
But could it not be a different thing depending on where the person is at?
Oh, for sure.
I wholly agree. Yes. Sometimes it's going to be mostly physical.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to be spiritual. Sometimes it'll be all 4 of them together.
For sure.
And that, I think, is where the real intimacy is when it involves all of those bodies and a oneness with your partner.
And that's why that's such a perfect, that's a perfect scenario to discuss the 4. If we all go, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, we can all tell the difference of those 4 bodies in that experience. So that's a perfect way. That's one of those that do hit all of those very differently.
Wow.
Very differently. So that was a
great question.
I didn't want to ask it when it wouldn't be easy to edit out if you want it. So.
As long as I answered it right, just look at the white balance. If it changes, all of a sudden her face is red. No,